Hi everyone, this is Rico Figliolini, host of Peachtree Corners Life, and this show, once a month with Brian Johnson, the city manager, it's prime lunchtime with the city manager. Hey Brian.
How are you?
Good. It's been a while.
Yes.
We're going to go through, let me talk about my friends though, our lead sponsor. So my friends at Hargrave Fiber, they just became a lead sponsor, and I want to tell you a little bit about them. They are a company that is not unique in the space, but provides unique solutions. So they're a fiber company, business to business, just moved into Peachtree Corners. They're based out of Savannah and Hilton. They craft customized solutions for hundreds of businesses throughout the Southeast. They are working with small business to provide affordable bundled services and enterprise level businesses that are looking for a full suite of managed IT services. So Hargrave Fiber can customize those solutions to work best depending on what your company and your industry needs. So no matter that industry, internet, high quality TV, phone solutions, they're the ones to do it. They have a local presence. You don't have to worry about the cable guy. They will be there, and they are community friendly, and they are doing lots of outreach to the city of Peachtree Corners.
I was just say, let me add one more thing.
Sure.
Hargrave not only has their office in Tech Park,
Yeah.
but they are the fiber provider, the official fiber provider of Curiosity Lab.
Excellent.
So if you think of all the technology that we have or will be talking about in Curiosity Lab, be it 5G, which, people are like, wait a second, 5G is wireless. Well, the 5G antennas that spit the wireless signal out have to be powered by something, and they're powered by a fiber line, and it's Hargrave's. The backbone of Curiosity Lab, all the technology, the backbone of it is the fiber line that Hargrave provided. So it literally none of it could work if the fiber optic cable that Hargrave's provided wouldn't be working. So they're a key part of Curiosity Lab.
Excellent. And if you want to find out more about Hargrave, just go to hargravefiber.com. That's HARGRAY fiber.com. And we're in Atlanta Tech Park, and this podcast studio is here, which is in Tech Park, Atlanta, on the road of Curiosity Lab.
Right on the test track.
Yeah. So this is cool. In the midst of this, we're going to be talking about a lot of things going on, high tech, and also keep an eye out for Peachtree Corners magazine. Our next issue will be out in another week or so, and we have a cover story on companies here in Peachtree Corners, innovative, technology driven, and a big part of this community. So we've been, I think it's been about a month maybe that we haven't spoken since. On the show, on the podcast. So there's lots going on, and I guess we were talking ahead of the show about something going on that reminded me of Blade Runners for some reason. It just the technology to be able to see the big images of things in the public realm and public streets and stuff. Tell us what's going on with the Tele-scooters, with LG specifically, that you met with, that's going to be out there that people can see.
Well, part of any city's operation is economic development. You're always wanting to make sure that, the businesses you have are healthy or attract new business. Right. And so, cities do that. We do that. A lot of what that is driving that lately tends to be around Curiosity Lab. As we know, it's serving the very purpose that it was created to serve, which is to become a magnet for companies to either come to Peachtree Corners on a temporary basis, even for the day, to use or tour or whatever. We at least know that if they're here for one day, they got to eat lunch and they're going to eat in our restaurants. Right. And, just a couple days in our hotels, we'll get, the indirect benefit of revenue from them. But a lot of what we're doing in the economic development arena is taking Curiosity Lab's environment that we've created and talking to companies about how they can use it. We're getting ready to unveil the next very unique user of Curiosity Lab, which is the tele-operated e-scooter.
Right.
And so,
which is available now, actually, even, right?
No, not quite. That you may have seen them out there, the company getting ready to test. Okay. But the way it'll work is we all know what an e-scooter is.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of controversy lately about e-scooters in cities, especially in Atlanta,
Right.
where you've had two things that have created problems. One, of course, is the users of the e-scooters not obeying traffic laws
Right.
or being cavalier, too fast on sidewalks when they shouldn't have been on sidewalks at all, or trying to zip in between automobiles and they get hit by, so unfortunately, like the drivers of automobiles, irresponsible drivers, you can never overcome.
Right.
But
Right.
the other aspect of e-scooters that are frustrating is the fact that people will leave them wherever they want, and the difficulty and the overhead cost of the company that owns a scooter repositioning them from where people are makes it difficult, and it frustrates people when you're walking down the sidewalk and there's 12 e-scooters just
laying on the
scattered all
floor.
over the
Right.
well, the company, and it's two companies that join forces for this, that are going to be testing a way to maybe address that issue. Is we're going to have tele-operated e-scooters, and those are e-scooters like you could buy from whatever sporting goods store or whatever,
Right.
and they have been retrofitted with a kit that adds two little training wheels to the back
Uh-huh.
so that they can stand on their own, because most of them are just two
Right,
wheels, and so
sure.
they can stand on their own, and a camera on the front stem.
Mm-hmm.
And when necessary, the e-scooter can be driven by a human from a remote location via the camera that they're
Right.
viewing through the. So in this case, the company has a tele-operation center in Mexico City. And so they're going to have it's almost like a call center
Yeah.
where you've got people sitting at stations, and when it's time for the e-scooter to be activated, from a distance, they can then have the screen go live.
They can see
They
where
can
they're
take
going.
over and drive the e-scooter. And how that's going to work is they're going to look at the scalability of doing this for two reasons. One, you can summon the e-scooter like
Right.
an Uber or a Lyft.
Uh-huh.
And so they're going to have an app that if you want to do it for, if you work in Tech Park or you want to do it just for novelty's sake,
Uh-huh.
you can have the e-scooter come to you, and then you jump on it and you drive it like any other e-scooter. That's one. And the other one is the company's going to look into whether or not on a large scale, and by large scale, they'll get up to about 100 e-scooters, but no more than that. They'll see if they can reposition the e-scooters from that Mexico City location using teleoperation and not have to get a truck
Right.
and two guys drive into all these locations,
Which is a
throwing them
gig
in the.
economy in Atlanta, because that's what they do in Atlanta.
That's correct. That's what they have to do everywhere,
yeah.
because what other way would they reposition them?
Yeah. So 5G actually helps it because there's no latency really, or very minimal when you're
I
driving
think
it.
so. Yeah, for all intents and purposes, none for that. So that'll help.
Right.
And they're also testing, because 5G will take a while for it to get. They're testing the ability to transition from 4G LTE to 5G and back and forth.
Right.
And then so they're going to test that out. And then what you referred to at the beginning is just got back from talking with a local company called LG MRI, which makes LG exterior televisions.
Mm-hmm.
Or screens, whether it could be touch screens or what, but they make it specifically for the outdoors. And we are talking about maybe partnering or having a collaborative effort between a number of companies. In the case of LG MRI, they would provide touch screen televisions at the bus stop.
Right.
And we would also integrate this kind of micro mobility transit hub. It would be a bus stop, a real world bus stop that Gwinnett
That already exists.
Gwinnett County Transit
Right.
exists. It would have the bus stop shelter cover.
Right.
Would have solar panels,
Huh.
And those solar panels would provide the electricity for the LG
scooters.
screens.
And-
And
Okay.
we're going to integrate a docking station for the e-scooters into
Nice.
this. And so you could invariably ride the bus to this spot
Right.
and then jump on the e-scooter to do that last couple hundred yards or whatever to your office,
Uh-huh.
or vice versa. When it's time to go home, if you're going to go home via bus, and this is like real world bus. This isn't like a couple
Right,
people
it's a connect
testing.
bus
This is
system.
yeah.
Yeah.
And these scooters are going to be available to the public.
Anyone that's within Technology Park.
Well, no, you could
Right.
come over here and just use it for novelty if you
Okay,
want, but
that's
I'm
not
just
that.
saying you can actually get on it. And so, but let's say you work in Tech Park. I mean, you could summon the e-scooter to your office
Through an app. Right?
through an app.
Right.
It gets there, you jump on it, you ride it to the bus stop, you put it in the docking station, and then when the bus comes, you get on the bus. While you're waiting, you could either you could use the interactive kiosk.
Right.
You could find out how far away the bus is. You can do all sorts of
Now,
things
that
while
would be
you're
cool
there.
to be able to see real
Mhm.
live that it's 10 minutes away.
Yep.
And then also it's going to be able to play probably commercials or,
Oh, sure.
or other things in big, huge screens and stuff. That's the part that reminded me about Blade Runner for some reason.
And this kind of stuff, these companies want to, be involved in creating, call it the bus stop of the
Mhm.
future.
Mhm.
We have all these things together, inside these screens, these exterior television screens, the LGMRI people call it their chassis, but it's got a container basically
Mhm.
that houses all the components inside, and it's completely watertight. And it also cools the interior components.
So even if it's 100
So it's
degrees outside,
100 degrees, it's good, but it also has the capability of adding third-party devices inside the box to provide lots of things outside of this one box, including like DSRC roadside units, 5G small cell antennas,
Okay.
wireless access points, all inside this box. And the television, the entire, kind of all-in-one module also has edge computing. So it actually can compute certain things. It has a degree of artificial intelligence and computation ability at that location versus having to go, somewhere to some brain somewhere else and come back. And
That's
so
so
it
funny.
could. So these companies are
Yeah,
loving this
yeah.
sandbox we've created for them to come play. And so we're kind of like being, to a degree, a matchmaker.
Yeah.
Where we're talking to, hey, they're doing this, and what
Right.
about you doing this? And we're kind of like the matchmaker that owns the house, and we're like, or owns the restaurant. We're like,
Right.
why don't you two get together and you can come to our restaurant and have your
Right.
date? We're telling them we got some property here.
Mhm.
We got these things. Come here. We'll kind of facilitate. We'll let you tie into certain things. And
It's almost like I could almost see at some point, asking John or Emma, what's the temperature now and how far is that bus? And it'll answer
Yes,
you.
yes.
I could see that.
they have was a so here's some interesting stuff. So these units, when we were talking to them, they have deployed these units recently at the entry points to Taylor Swift concerts. And what they've done is the screens have been displaying imagery that's of some interest to people going there.
Right.
And inside the box
Mhm.
is facial recognition software.
Mhm.
And when people are looking at the image, it will take and get a snapshot of their face. And it scrubs that against databases that I guess the Taylor Swift security team
Mhm.
has for people who are on, kind of call it a watch list for her. Like there's a restraining order against them because they've been stalking her, or they've made comments on social media sites about her. And so these celebrities have people that do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And so they've been able to identify people who have posed or have a high potential to
Interesting.
pose a threat to her.
Right.
So that helps them.
Sure.
being done at a private venue, so there's not this whole you don't have any right. They voluntarily went to this
Right.
for them.
Sure. It's not a public thing.
No, it is not a public. They buy a
and they
ticket and they
understand
know
that
right, and so it's at a private, concert venue.
right, that they're paying
But then the
tickets.
security team knows, and I actually don't know what was done about it. It could have been they just kept an eye on him. It could have been that they were asked to leave because of, I know that the team, the company that provided this housing, this chassis for all this technology, did say that, it identified some people who there was a restraining order against because they had been convicted of stalking.
Oh.
So maybe those were asked to leave. But anyway, the other interesting thing is the concert venue insurance requirement.
Did that go down?
Went down.
Really?
Because the insurance
Makes
company
sense.
was like, you know what? You are minimizing risk
Right.
for things, so you don't have to have as many. But the unique part of this is technology that's housed in one watertight, secure unit, and it's using multiple things at the same time to further.
It's interesting. At home, if you have an alarm system, of course, your home insurance will be discounted, right?
Yep.
So similar, right? And it also introduces. This is great. I'm all for this. Certain people are like afraid of the technology to a degree, and there is even talk. I don't know if this is. I think this is in England or Europe at this point, but it may come across the ocean to us. They're talking about moratorium on facial recognition videos because of in the public realm, in the public space, because of privacy concerns and stuff. And I know, so our next thing, and this is cool. So that was LG MRI.
Yep.
So people can Google that and find out.
Yeah, their manufacturing plant, fascinating.
Okay.
They had just asked us to come over and meet, and they wanted us to show us their site too. But they are going to have. They also are interested in hanging digital screens on the side of light poles like you see out here now that are the banners.
Yeah.
They make ones that you can have digital, so you can have all sorts of messaging on that,
cool.
and it's not the same thing. So yes, it is. So they're going to do that stuff. Yeah. So today they were like, we're going to do something. Where can we put things? And so we told them, here are the areas of our sandbox you can do things. And so we're going to have another meeting in a week or two where they're going to come back and say, we would like to do things here.
That's amazing.
Here.
I bet you didn't even think about at this point.
There's so much of this that I didn't even know. Some of it's really cool, like, wow, I didn't realize that technology was here. Some of it is in technology that I thought was farther along than it is.
Really?
It's represented that it is, but when you get into it, it's not quite as so. I've had both, but yes, so just unique things that can be done in a using technology, especially when you pair a bunch of them together.
Yeah. So let's go into, because you guys, this past Tuesday, city council meeting, a few things went on. That LG MRI, that was really also allowed because of what you passed just recently, the micromobility piece of it.
Yes. So for us to have e-scooters operate at all, because currently e-scooters haven't really been addressed by the city much. It was addressed in our entertainment district ordinance, and it prohibited e-scooters essentially in our entertainment district, which is our town center and kind of that area. Other than that, it's not addressed. So theoretically, somebody could go and buy one and go out there, but we had to address it in some way. But because this is a pilot program and it's testing or whatever, what we did is we created a program similar to kind of how we regulate other activity within our right-of-way. Like if a telecommunication company wanted to come in and do work in our right-of-way like Berry Cable, we have to give them a permit to do that. We did the same with the e-scooter.
And is that
we created one for a scooter so that they can have, that can be the activity that they are involved in our right-of-way.
Is that a sunset rule also?
It is. So it said a couple of things. One is initially it's just at Curiosity Lab. 2, it is a year-long pilot program. 3, it has to be geo-fenced So there has to be the technological capability of having the e-scooter shut down if it gets outside of a previously defined area. So if
Okay.
you tried to drive it up to the town center at a certain point, it would shut down on you.
Okay.
Similar for the golfers out there, sometimes you can get on a golf cart,
Yes.
and if it has GPS and it's supposed to be cart path only,
Mm-hmm.
and you get off the cart path, oftentimes it'll
stop.
shut down, or it'll go real slow until you go back. And so similar.
Okay.
And then we also require this permit requires the e-scooter operator to have teleoperation capability.
Okay.
I mean, because e-scooters in general don't need to be tested.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they work.
Right. Right.
This is the test part. The reason there's a lab that's needed is because of that teleoperation.
Okay.
So we'll start on that, and if it works out, we can always expand the boundaries a little bit. Would love to create a scenario in which you could have e-scooters go from the 1,000+ hotel rooms we have at the south end of Curiosity Lab, between the Hilton, the Marriott, was a Homewood Suites in Hampton,
Right.
and the town center forum. I mean, that's a need base between the two, especially Sunday
go
through
up
Thursday night.
141 because the sidewalks are even
Potentially, I mean, state law. There's some.
Right, yeah.
There's a lot of in the Georgia General Assembly is currently considering legislation on defining certain aspects of e-scooters. So we're keeping an eye on that, and
Okay.
made reference to our our permittee would have to adhere to all state and local laws on e-scooters. So if that tweaks things, here soon because the
Right.
General Assembly did something. But
Yeah.
anyway, that's kind of how it'll operate. But they'll get ultimately up to 100 scooters, and they are available to the public as just like any other e-scooter.
free,
The
just
only
as needed. Yeah.
well, I don't know if it's free. They may end up having a slight.
Okay.
Might.
Really?
They
Okay.
might.
Okay.
We've
Gotcha.
encouraged it not to, since it's a pilot, but that's not our decision.
Okay.
So we don't know that yet.
Okay. Good to know.
But if you do get on it, it's an off-the-shelf e-scooter that they've merely outfitted with a camera on the front stem
And the
and the little
tricycle
training
part.
wheels on the back, which, as an operator of it, you don't deploy. They deploy it remotely, so it's just like any other one. So if somebody's been on a bird or a Lime,
It'd be the same.
just
thing.
same thing.
Yeah.
It's just that when you're off of it, the company may on its own decide to move it somewhere else, and
That's
it
fine.
has nothing to do with you.
So we talked a little bit about the micromobility part and stuff like that too. So you also discussed the license recognition, the facial recognition, cameras that are going to be deployed. So did that come to fruition? Did the city council decide on a plan on how that's going to happen?
So at the council meeting, we had the first read.
Okay.
So not the final vote. Final vote will be at the February council meeting. But council had the first read of an ordinance creating it's really activating the city's ability to create what are called special service districts. And what that is home rule municipalities in Georgia have the authority to create a special service district, and they can define the district how they essentially see fit.
Okay.
And inside this district, there can be unique things that happen inside this district for a specific service. An example of that would be you could create a special service district for public safety. And you could do things inside of this special district that were specifically aimed at improving public safety.
Okay.
So doing things like installing video and license plate recognition cameras, installing street lights. Those are things that improve public safety. That special district can have unique things about it. For instance, it could, council could say, install a bunch of street lights on a street that was dark, that was not a connector street, one that did not serve a true public purpose. So a neighborhood street that maybe was a residential street that had houses on it and a dead end. but if it had problems there, the city could install streetlights on the street and then take the pro rata share of the cost of the streetlight and equally distribute it
To every
amongst
home.
all the homes that benefit from the service, or all the apartments, as the case may be,
Okay.
the apartment units.
So now volunteering to be part of that. If someone wants to, if a subdivision wants to be part of that and volunteer, you guys have set up percentages or ways to do that?
Yes. So, and you're referring to the fact we've talked about before that this ability to create a special service district gives council the ability to determine what threshold
Right.
that would be required before they did it.
Right.
We can start with kind of the fact that council can impose it
Oh, okay.
if it against, in other words, there doesn't have to be a threshold. They have that authority. I'm not saying they will,
Right, but they
can. And
then-
I will
then-
give
and
you
then
examples of that where they may one day.
and prorate it out to the
Yes,
community.
an apartment complex that has a crime problem,
Right.
that has been, there's been some issues or whatever, they can decide, you know what, you don't have enough street lighting.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to
Even
put
though
street
it's
lights in there.
internal to that apartment complex.
Even
Is
if
it
it's,
not-
as long as the city streets are public, you could do it in there. If they're private streets internal to that, couldn't. But
Mhm.
council could put it at the entrance.
Okay. But within, because apartment complexes have their own streets and driveways.
If
and
it's
that.
truly private, some of them are public still. And there's a
Okay,
lot of
yeah.
neighborhoods that have, you could look at them as interior streets, but they're really the cities.
Well, for sure, if the city's going to pave them, they're public streets. right?
Correct. I promise you that we're not paving streets that are not.
Okay, yes.
Most streets in the city
Right.
are public.
Okay.
There are very few that are not, and there are very, very few that are private that are not behind a gate.
Okay.
Very few. There's only a handful of apartment complexes that have a labyrinth of streets interior that
And
are
they-
not public.
And they pave their own.
And they pave their own. And most of them, maybe all of them, are behind a gate.
Mm-hmm.
Then they're private.
But
You can't be
outside that
gated.
gate, on the public street,
The city could do a number of things. It could light it up, prior to that. But a good example the street light one, say there's an apartment that is city streets and the city didn't feel like there was enough lights, it could do that and then put it on the property owner, the landlord, to
Okay.
pay it.
Sure.
Sorry, your crime rate is too high. It's unacceptable.
Uh-huh.
We think one of the things that would improve public safety is better lighting,
Uh-huh.
because there's been maybe problems in the parking lot at night or whatever,
Sure.
and we're going to do that. Or another one would be, and this could even apply to an apartment complex that has a gate, and so the interior streets are, but there's a lot of criminal activity coming and going. The city could decide to put a camera at the entrance
Mhm.
so that all the cars coming and going got picked up by that camera. And it could create a special service district around that area. And in that
Right.
district, they can charge the property owners for that camera because it's a public safety.
So what's the threshold for volunteering?
All right, so volunteering, that's where council will probably between now and February make the final decision,
Okay.
because it's only had the first read.
Sure.
But they're really leaning towards probably a 70% threshold.
Okay.
I think, the 50% plus one, they kind of feel like that's, just too close.
Yeah.
And most of these, they feel like, look, you ought to have a super majority
Mm-hmm.
for them to feel kind of like, this
Right.
is good. And so there will be an option here for a community to ask the city to do something because it's unable to do it itself.
Mhm.
So they could exercise a referendum kind of component
And
where,
this is to become a special district.
right, for a particular purpose.
Okay.
And so there's really three services as we envision it.
Okay.
There could be more in the future, but really three that may be a service that results from these districts. One is the video camera license plate recognition.
Mm-hmm.
2 is street lights, and 3 are speed bumps or traffic control devices.
Okay.
Speed bumps or speed humps, as the case may be, are usually the one that cities don't like to just put it in because it affects a lot of people, and we tend to want to have a lot of buy-in from the community to put it. So those are ones that we envision being a service that the city can provide either voluntarily, where a community comes to the city and says, here's proof. We did a referendum, and here's proof that 70% of the property owners want it.
Right.
Or the city could decide to do it because it's just there's too much problems for whatever reason. There's too much speeding, and but the local residents, and we have this in a couple places where the local residents can never get enough property owners because they're renters and the owners live out of state and they don't want to. So it could be one where the city council just decides, it needs it, and we're just going to do it.
Okay, but the city council has to vote.
Oh yeah, city council.
So
has
it's not like some regular, department decides.
No, the city, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like a special use permit. Does it go through planning commission, or is it straight to?
I don't know. I think it's straight to city council on
Makes
those
sense.
because it's really not a land use. It's really how it operates.
Right. So the cameras are really license plate recognition, not facial recognition.
No, there won't be any facial recognition on this.
And like we discussed before, this is really stored for a certain period of time. No one can see it or use it unless there's a crime or something pursuant to it.
The way that it will work, that we envision it'll work, is, and there's one other way that you could end up having this happen, and that is they're considering homeowners associations that uniquely fit a unique qualification, and that is really essentially they have officers that have been elected, and they own property that can receive that receives a property tax bill. Because if they meet that threshold, they could request a camera like at the entrance to a subdivision that the HOA owns, and then the city can bill that HOA through its property tax bill. And the HOA then could take a vote and officially ask for the city to install a camera there.
And just curious, because just hit me, can they request to put one near the swim and tennis, for example, within the subdivision?
If the city owns property, if you could put it in the public right of way, so it's not a private street, and the HOA gets a property tax bill, then yes, invariably there could be put it here. And so all that being said is you were bringing up, so the way that mayor and council are envisioning, the way that I ultimately proposed is when these cameras go in, if there's a request and all the things, the city is not going to end up having access to the data ever. It is going straight to the cloud and Gwinnett County PD. And the cloud accessed by Gwinnett County PD. And the only way Gwinnett County PD accesses it is if there's a police report filed. So the city's not even
for that it recognizes a plate that may be...
No, that would be automatic. I'm sorry. You're referring to when Gwinnett County sometime in 2020 will have that special division that stood up. Our license plate recognition cameras will then communicate directly with Gwinnett PD. And if a license plate that it takes a photo of comes up hot, that there's a warrant for that vehicle for some reason. It was reported stolen, it's an Amber Alert, or really invariably what most of them come up hot for is no insurance or expired tags. But that'll automatically go to Gwinnett PD. And Gwinnett PD will make a case-by-case decision on whether the license plate coming up hot is worthy of moving assets around specific to it. And we do know, having talked to other communities who have just put this in place, that, with like the insurance and expired tag stuff, is just, to me, is not going to end up invariably having anybody do anything different. But you could get, like, an Amber Alert would be a good one. They will immediately deploy assets upstream of the direction of travel of that vehicle, at least where the direction of travel when it got the photo.
Because it's real time, it's getting out.
It is real time.
Okay.
That'll happen, but when it comes to even that photo will not be accessed by anybody other than Gwinnett County PD.
Okay.
So a photo is taken and it may send a message, but every license plate photo is taken and it will go to the cloud and it'll sit there. And I want to say it's 30 days it's written over.
Mm-hmm.
So the storage is only for 30 days worth. And then day 31 starts recording over the very first day in that.
Right.
But the video and the photos of the license plate are Gwinnett PD. The city will never have access to it.
Right.
And if somebody wants historical imagery or video from that, they got to file a police report.
Okay.
And the reason to do that is just to avoid the, not to say that I wouldn't want to do this, but, say my daughter, when she grew up was, snuck out or whatever, and, you wanted to find out who, came back, things like that. But it's so ripe for abuse on those kind of things.
For sure. Yeah.
So, mayor and council
and
staff's decision was just like, we're not in it.
Yeah.
It goes directly to the cloud, and it's stored for that period of time before it's written. And if somebody files a police report, they get through Gwinnett PD access, and then Gwinnett PD can come in and they can use it to investigate, but we're not in it.
And I think the way you set it up, no one can really argue too much about that as far as privacy goes, because the only access point would be if there was a crime, and that's...
there's got to be something worthy of a police report.
Correct, and that's reasonable. I don't see anything wrong with that. Facial recognition in a variety of ways could be an issue at some point, but not that.
Yeah, and these do not have that. None of these have. Now, the capabilities out there, we're not getting any cameras that have facial recognition.
So there's not even a capability to upgrade.
No, not the cameras that we're getting.
Now
remember, we're getting, these are Georgia Power. These are cameras through a Georgia Power program called SiteView.
Okay.
So this isn't like fly by night, or this is a program they have created, and they hang these cameras. And the reason they did this is because they can generate money. They hang these cameras on their light poles or their utility poles. So there's already power there.
Right. And
we don't buy the cameras. We actually lease the cameras monthly.
Okay.
And so monthly we pay it, but what we get for the monthly cost is it's an all-inclusive. We don't have to do anything. We never had to pay up front for the camera. We don't pay for the cloud storage. We don't pay for the electricity. And if it breaks, we don't pay to have it repaired.
You're just paying a leasing fee.
Right. And it's how our street lights currently exist. And so it's a pretty common, so this isn't like some fly, but this is Georgia Power, a Public Service Commission regulated utility. But no, it doesn't do facial recognition. And I will tell you, if it did, the amount of storage that you would have to have and the amount of edge computing you would have to have for there to be analysis done and a database to pull facial imagery to store is not even...
It's different from being able to use a system like that to count bodies in a space.
That's correct.
So it's not...
We had that capability at the town green.
Right.
But it just counts... All it can do is differentiate between a human and a vehicle. So it's counting people. That's why when, I say there's a... And even then there's a little bit because it doesn't know enough to not count you twice.
Oh, really?
Right. I mean, but on a concert, we can kind of take snapshots of how many are there at a time.
Non-moving, okay.
So that we can kind of get a pretty good idea of how many people are there. But if we had it, like, say, at the, door of a restaurant or the restrooms or whatever, if you...
In and out.
Right, in and out, it would count you all the time. So you have to still... But no, we don't have... Again, it takes a lot of juice to make that to where it's really working, because you got to be pulling from a database. I mean, because to recognize your face, it has to have your face somewhere. Then it's got to have the ability to take a photo and then pull distinct marks like a fingerprint, and then it's got to be constantly scrubbing the face image that you just came on there against God only knows how many images out there. And oh, by the way, it's taking photos of all these new ones doing it. It's just at a level. It's out there. The technology is out there, but no. We don't have anything close to that.
Okay.
At all.
Okay. Cool. Let's move on a little bit because we're getting towards our time a little bit, but I want to touch on a few other things. The Redevelopment Authority, you're doing a plan for that, right? That you said would take about 12 weeks, you think, 3 months to be able to pull it together?
Yes, so the state statute that allows cities to create redevelopment authorities has some requirements in it, and mayor and council have made the decision that we're going to create a redevelopment authority.
Okay.
We're going to start concentrating on some of the redevelopment needs and opportunities in the city. And by redevelopment, it's really, taking a parcel that has been developed in one way, shape, or form at one point in time.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have a lot of vacant stuff, so most of it's still operating, but sometimes it's just not quite as great of a use as we would like,
mm-hmm.
or whatever. And so redevelopment opportunities and redevelopment authorities have certain tools at their disposal that the city government itself does not. Very similar to our downtown development authority, which we have and has owned property, has entered into an agreements, has incurred debt, and so it has a lot of the same powers. Although most of this stuff, as anything in life goes, the oil that makes activity work is money.
Right.
So these authorities need money. It's usually the city having to appropriate money to them. But the Redevelopment Authority does have certain tools like access to grants that the city doesn't have if it does it directly, and it can negotiate and sole source without having to bid it out in something by law having to go to the low bidder.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the low bidder is not the best one to do something.
For sure, that.
But the city doesn't have a choice. They do. But anyway, this state statute laying out all of the requirements for redevelopment authority to exist require that there be a redevelopment plan
mm-hmm.
that is in place before you create the redevelopment authority, because the redevelopment authority will be created to execute the redevelopment plan.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe amend it, but that's the original plan. It
Right.
is, and so we have to start with doing a redevelopment plan. So, council is, we set the wheels in motion. We have we interviewed firms and we selected a firm, and they're going to start on the redevelopment plan. Given the history of us collecting and organizing, compiling data and certain things that are necessary for a redevelopment plan, we're actually a lot farther along than we thought. So it'll only be about 12 weeks for a full-blown one to be done, including some public meetings that we'll be advertising to come in and hear about, where the plan is. And, the plan will have everything from areas that should be part of the redevelopment effort. It doesn't have to be, and it probably won't be all of the city. It'll be targeted areas for targeted reasons. And so there'll be some public opportunities for people to weigh in.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, council will approve that plan and then turn around and immediately start populating the redevelopment authority and get it populated, and then they'll adopt their bylaws and away they go.
All right. A lot going on there. So I want to also hit on a few things quickly because we don't have that much time, but I want to be able to sort of get an update, let's say.
Sure.
Pedestrian Bridge. I see the pillars going up. How far along are we really?
I mean, we have issued the order to start fabricating the span,
Okay.
which is being done off-site.
Right.
And of course, you see the two, ends going up.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of concrete, and it's intricate because there are elevator shafts in there. But that's being formed and poured. We're still hoping to have the span dropped on site sometime maybe in May.
Okay.
And dropped on site. So they'll have the span, but then we got to start attaching the sides. Because it can't be just like a a little railing. This is over a very heavily traveled roadway. Georgia DOT has to permit this whole thing because it not only is over their roadway, but the two towers are in their right of way. So it has to be permitted by them, and so they've got to inspect this at certain points. And so the span will come out. We've got to attach sides that have small enough openings that you can't throw things out into traffic.
Right.
And
And
then
it's going to be signage too, essentially. It's going to
there'll be letters spelling out Peachtree Corners.
Right.
And then you got to pour the floor because it's steel fabric, and then they'll set it in place and everything. So I mean, you're still, sometime in the summer,
Okay.
it should be done, but it's moving along. Well, I mean, of course, it's got to get state approval at various
Right.
places.
Just like anything else.
And weather's always a factor and everything. And it's a little bit slower because we're not wanting to close lanes to do any of this. So, there are certain things that it would move faster if you could, but we're not going to. So anyway, but sometime this summer is not bad.
All right. And what about, we were talking about the Indigo Hotel, possibly the apartment complex there. That's off town center. Is that moving along any more than what we discussed last time?
I mean, the owner and the ownership group raised over $21 million, $23 million, something like that for the effort. That's official. In fact, they're already starting to issue quarterly reports to all of the investors. So they're holding their money. That much I do know.
Okay.
So if they weren't serious, I don't know why they would go out and raise that much money only to have to give it back. So
that $23 million will actually fund both those buildings, I
right,
guess,
it would be for the whole thing.
Yeah.
And so it looks like it's
Sounds
moving. Good. I mean, they haven't submitted for any permits or anything yet, but then there's a lot of work behind the scenes that go on some of these things.
The old Fiserv property, I understand earth is moving or things are being done there.
Demolition
of
existing buildings is happening.
Okay.
So it is moving forward.
Okay.
Phase 1 at least.
Right. All right. And then I hear the Peachtree Corners Festival is going to be at Town Center this year.
It is.
And is plenty of space. Good. Is it going to be? Are we going to be closing off the street? I guess Peachtree Corner Circle from Medlock to 41 and all that.
So it looks like for it to have enough property, we're going to have to bring into play the section of Peachtree Corner Circle in between Medlock and Peachtree Parkway.
Okay.
And close off some of it. There's, I don't know if it'll be from Medlock just to the entrance to Da Vinci Court. That's probably what it'll be done. Then Da Vinci Court's parking lots might come into play. But, like the car show and the vendors setting up, you got to have a lot of space.
Road, sure.
And then we use the town green as the concert space.
Right.
And so I think the link between the two will be, I think it'll be good. I mean, and I know the businesses want it.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, the businesses are, I'm seeing more, everyone's doing their bit to gather more business. It's just, you can't even hire enough people, it seems. Some of the businesses, especially the restaurants, it seems to be that there's just not enough people to hire to do the work even.
Well, I mean, that's a whole different, conversation about workforce housing. Communities love having lots of service-related, amenities, restaurants, good stores, boutique stores, entertainment, but they have to have people working in them that are in the service sector, and service sector doesn't necessarily make a lot of money. And so sometimes it's hard if you're in that, if you're like working in a restaurant in a affluent area, you can't live close to that because you can't afford to.
So is the city looking at solutions for that maybe?
Well, I mean, yes, we're always looking to have as diverse of a housing stock as we can, just like we want a diverse local economy. The trick there is to find the right locations for all of that stuff. And so, but we are. But yeah, I mean, the other thing though is we're kind of in that unique point in time. We just added a bunch of new stuff,
Mm-hmm.
which means this what existed prior to that is kind of sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Then you've got this extra, you know, fight for finite resources.
Yeah.
And we're not in that final stage of all of the local rooftops. You've got 75-ish townhomes that still have to be built.
Right.
They're starting. You can see
Yeah, they
some of
are.
them coming out, but you know that's people that are right there. And then you've got, was it 250-ish, however many units that were in the pedestal apartment complex on the Robbers property that haven't started yet. And so that's a lot of rooftops, or call them residential units, that are right there at town center that'll help. And then we also haven't connected the forum in the town center yet. So right now, I've felt that there have been times where I may have walked to the other side for something, but because I can't easily,
You'd have to get
I just got in the car and I said,
across.
screw it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that right now. Whereas if you could have just walked across, I probably would have. So linking it all together. So we're hoping to just get through this transitionary period and everything is relatively, the same. And then at that point, I think we'll have a good base for customers.
Yeah.
To
Yeah,
frequent those
for sure.
establishments.
When there's, especially East Jones Bridge Road, the old Fiserv
Yep.
property, more
Yep.
stuff going on there. This has been Prime Lunchtime with City Manager Brian Johnson. I appreciate the time you've given us.
Thanks for having me.
We've been at Atlanta Tech Park here in the city of Peachtree Corners doing this podcast, talking about all sorts of things from mobility to development and retail and business. I want to say thank you again to our friends at Hargray Fiber, who's been not only is a lead sponsor of this podcast and the family podcast, but also a big part of Curiosity Lab at Peachtree
Absolutely.
Corners. So thank you for that, and you can find more information about Hargray at hargrayfiber.com. So appreciate it. Thanks, everyone. Take care.